Hello and welcome to the Creative Mojo podcast. This is episode number 48. My name is Joanne and I am your host as always. I'm coming to you from my home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And this is my podcast dedicated to my love of knitting. I'm really glad that you've joined me today. For any of you who might be new, welcome, and I hope that you'll enjoy what you see. And for all my returning viewers, welcome back. It's good to get a chance to talk with you again. It's again been 3 weeks since my last episode. That seems to be what I'm falling into in terms of every 3 weeks. I was going to record last weekend, but then I felt like I didn't actually have enough content to show you, so I decided to put it off to this weekend instead. And you'll see why. I finished a couple of things, and I felt like if I had podcast last weekend, I would have just been showing you a little more progress on all the same projects that I had basically shown you last episode. So I decided to wait off, knowing that I would have a few things actually done, and I do. It's very exciting. I have 3 finished objects to show you today. So let's just dive right into that. I'll get to a few of the other things that are going on at the end of the podcast. But first I will jump right in and show you my finished objects, and I'm going to start with the most exciting one for me. I finished a sweater. I finished my Beaumont sweater. This is a sweater designed by Sonia Barjalowska for Blacker Yarns. It's from the Blacker Yarns website through Ravelry, obviously is where I got the pattern. And I knit it out of Knit Picks Stroll Tweed, which is fingering weight. I knit it in the Down Heather color. Yes, Down Heather, yes, that's correct. And I used 7.5 50 millimeter skeins. I thought I was actually going to use a little bit more, but it came out at 7.5, and I'm really pleased with the size and stuff. So that would be the equivalent of 4 and a bit 100 weight skeins. Anyway, as I talked about previously when I talked about the sweater while it was still a whip, it called for fingering weight, and so I substituted a fingering weight for it. And then when I looked at the yarn that they had recommended, the Blacker yarn that they had recommended on the pattern, I actually realized that that's a heavier fingering weight, maybe leaning a little bit more towards a sport weight. So I had a little bit of trouble with the weight of my yarn and gauge and stuff, but nothing serious. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. I haven't blocked it yet, which is and I didn't wear it today because I thought it would be even harder to show it to you wearing it than to just show it to you like this. I will get some pictures of it, finished object pictures of it sometime in the next very short little while, and hopefully then post them on Instagram, so you'll be able to see, and on my Ravelry page as well, so you'll be able to see the finished object with me wearing it. But yeah, so this was a really fun pattern actually to knit. I enjoyed it a lot, even though it was a lot of slog at the end through a lot of stockinette. You knit the pattern this way up to start with. So you cast on, you knit the sleeves flat, and you cast on here, and you knit up, 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 and then you knit across the top of the yoke, and then you knit down for the other sleeve, and you knit all of that flat with all this lovely cable pattern that you can see when you're knitting it. It's actually this way. Has this lovely center cable pattern that runs sort of up the center of the sleeve. And then you join, that's where I joined it, you join it together. You mattress stitch it together all along the underside of the sleeve and a little bit down the arm here where it and then so you've joined that all together. You wash and you block it, and then you pick up pick up stitches all the way around here, and you knit in a tube down to the end, and then it has this fun turned hem. Every time I show this sweater, I get a little bit, it's because it's a tweed pattern and it's got little flyaways, and I seem to get fiber itches in my nose every time I'm showing this. I hope that's not going to happen every time I wear it. But so you knit, you're knitting down to here, you do a folded hem, so it's got this folded, turned up hemlessly inside. And then you just actually whip stitch it, as you can see there, to attach it. And it makes a really nice looking, this is not an actual seam, although it looks like a seam. It's just a faux seam of a couple of purl stitches on either side under the arms. But then you join it and you get this very nice, or you turn up the hem and you get this nice turned hem. And it's, the yarn is lovely. As I said, it's the Knit Picks Stroll Tweed. There it goes with the itchy nose again. And it's really soft. As I said, I haven't blocked it yet, so it is a little bumpy looking still. That'll all settle right down when I wash it, block it. I just haven't got around to that. I don't really have a good spot in my house to lay out a sweater to dry, other than either on the floor, which I don't always like to do, or on the dining room table here, which is where I'm sitting to record. And I just haven't had the opportunity to leave something out on the dining room table for, you know, a day and a half or whatever. But I will get it done. I can do it on the bed, but if I do it on the bed, then obviously it has to lay out on the bed for a full day. And we don't have we do have a spare bed, a guest bed, but it's actually a futon, so I have to unfold it and do all that stuff. So anyway, you don't care. But yes, I haven't gotten around to blocking it yet, but I really like it. It looks really nice on. It's lightweight and it's really soft, and I put it on when it was all done, and my husband looked at it and it was a really nice compliment. He said, "Wow, that's beautiful." He said, "I think that's the best sweater you've knit yet." So that was nice. So that is my finished Beaumont cardigan. I don't know, the pattern gives you the option to sort of switch sizes a little bit in terms of what size you knit for the sleeves, and you're going in that with the sleeves by the circumference of the arms. That's the only thing I'm not totally wild about how it looks on, is that it is very fitted through the sleeves. And yeah, I've got some extra meat on my arms. I'm not super madly in love with that, but it's not a real deterrent to, I think the sweater still looks nice and I'm still really happy with it. So, but you do get the option to switch sizes from what size you knit in the sleeves to what size you're knitting around. So I knit the largest size because, as I said, my gauge was a little challenging. And I wanted to make sure that they weren't any more fitted than they already are. So I knit the largest size. I actually added an extra set of increases as well in the top, and I'm super glad I did that. And then, but I didn't really need that largest size in the bust measurement. So I went down, and the pattern tells you how to do that quite easily, so that this measurement across for the bust is not, it's nicely comfy and fitted. It's not like super form fitting, but it fits nicely. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it other than it was an enjoyable knit. It's a lovely sweater. I would, not that I very often do, and probably not with sweaters will for a long time, knit things again, but if I were to pick a pattern to knit again, I would do this again, and I can highly recommend it. So as I said, the Beaumont sweater. I'm going to put it down now because I keep getting the little itchy fluffies in my nose. So that was my first finished object, and I knit pretty monogamously on that until I finished the body of that. And then I finished two smaller projects that I have also talked about on here before, both of which are giveaway gifts for friends. This is the Habitat hat by Jared Flood. I knit this out of Malabrigo Rios in the Jupiter colorway, and you can see it's a wonderfully cabled, see the cables on the pretty one. It's a wonderfully cabled hat. I'm hoping it's not going to be too small for the person I made it for. It's certainly not too small this way, but it is pretty. She did want more of a beanie style than to have it slouchy. So it's not super long here. Like, it's shorter than I would wear, but I think it's what she asked for, and I hope that it's going to not be too short in here. That would be a real drag. I guess I could, I would probably just rip it all out and start over, which I would really hate to do, because while it doesn't take a super long time, the cables aren't super fast either. So see the top of it there. I'm hoping she will like it as is. My friend Karen gifted me this yarn last last late fall, just before Christmas, while we were working on a play together. She just came in one day and she'd been to the yarn store to buy some yarn for her sister, I think for a gift, a Christmas gift, and she bought me some too because she was there and it was pretty. So I said I would knit her a hat out of it. So that's my second finished object. And my third finished object is this adorably cute little baby sweater. Isn't that just the cutest? I love knitting this little baby cardigan pattern. This is about I do occasionally knit things more than once. This is about my 7th time knitting this little sweater. I based it fairly loosely off a pattern called, look at my notes here, Sock Yarn Top Down Baby Cardigan from Kalana Crafts, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. I don't follow the pattern a ton other than I just use it for the cast on numbers off the top. It's a top down raglan and I use it for the cast on numbers at the top. It is knit out of a fingering weight. This is the same yarn actually as my sweater, my Beaumont cardigan. It is the Knit Picks Straw Tweed. This is in the Shiraz colorway. My sweater, by the way, was in the Down Heather colorway. And it's knit at a much tighter gauge. This is knit on a 2.5 millimeter needle. I think if I were to use this yarn for this particular sweater again, the other ones I've knit all on a 2.5 millimeter needle. This one's a little sturdier than some of the others I've done out of other kinds of sock yarn. I could have gone up to a 2.75 millimeter needle and had a slightly more relaxed fabric than this. But it's really cute. It's a newborn baby. His name is Harrison and he was just born a couple of, early last week, like Tuesday or Wednesday of this past week. And my friend Diane, he's her first grandchild, and she had asked me if I would make a sweater for her to gift to them, to the newborn baby, and I was very happy to do that. I always enjoy making these little sweaters. They're pretty quick to do, although I took quite a bit of a break on working on this while I was finishing up my sweater. So, and it's got these really cute little duck buttons on them. Diane and I picked out the yarn and the buttons before the baby was born, obviously, and I wanted to make something that could be suitable for a boy or a girl, and I felt this yarn is really nice with the little tweedy bits of yellow and green and blue in it, and actually red. There's some red tweedy bits in there too. It's just the cutest. I haven't blocked this yet either. I'll throw it in a delicate cycle in the wash tonight and lay it out to dry. This yarn actually could be delicate machine washed and tumble dried, but I'm scared always to knit things in the dryer. Every once in a while I will put something in the dryer for a very short period of time just on an air cycle with no heat. And I might do that for a bit and sort of halfway dry this, just because I would like to take it to work tomorrow and pass it on to Diane to pass on to the baby. So it has garter stitch on the cuffs and the neckband and the button band, and the bottom is all garter stitch and the rest is all stockinette. See the back? It's raglan construction, super easy. Yeah, I really love this little sweater. I just think this is adorable. So that's my third FO to show you. So I'm pretty pleased with 3 FOs since we talked last. And I only have one other project to show you, which is what I've been getting a lot of my time as a work in progress. Other than finishing those things, the other thing I have been working on is my Birkin sweater. Again, I've talked about this a number of times, but I'm powering through the body of the Birkin sweater now. So you can see I've got all of that done. I think I was about here when I showed it to you last. So I've added 10 inches probably to the body, 8 to 10 inches since I showed it to you last time. I have tried it on. It fits well, although I talked about this, I think, in my last episode, about being worried a bit about the construction of the color yoke here, which is so pretty, but is a little unforgiving in both the fact that there are no increases between here and here, so it's like a tube, but also with the 3-color work, it's pretty intense in its floats and stuff in there. So it's a little stiff in this part. When I put it on, when I tried it on, it sits nicely, but then as soon as you raise your arms, it kind of the whole sweater moves up a bit. I'm hoping that with more to the body and with the sleeves and with a good blocking and stuff, that will work out okay. So we shall see. But anyway, I'm still really enjoying working on it. I just love I'm knitting this out of Brooklyn Tweed Loft, which is the fingering weight. The main color of the body is sweatshirt, all that gray. If you want to see the colors that are in the yoke there, I've talked about it on a couple of episodes, and I think it's my Ravelry project page as well, because I don't have all the colors with me, ball bands with me at the moment. But I'm going to stop working on the body for a bit, and I have actually just put these sleeve stitches back on a needle, and I'm going to start on the sleeves. I'm not sure. I have 4 50-gram skeins of yarn left, and I'm thinking that that's going to be enough. They're meant to be sort of 3/4 length sleeves, like to here. So I thought I'd see how much sleeve I get out of one ball of yarn, whether I can get all the way down there, or if I could get even longer. So we'll see. So I thought I would stop on the body, since I was at a place where I needed to add a new ball of yarn anyway, and work on the sleeves a bit and see how much length I get on the sleeve out of one ball of yarn. Because what I'm hoping is 1 ball of yarn for each sleeve, and then 2 more balls of yarn to finish the body and the bottom band. So we shall see. But it's coming along nicely. Like I said, I just love the yarn. I would like to make, it's a shame that this yarn is fairly expensive here in Canada, which is too bad, because I would like to make other sweaters out of this, but it's here at my local yarn store, which is nice. I can buy it at my local yarn store, so you can see all the colors in person and pick it out and stuff. But it's $18.50 for 50 grams, which is not cheap, right? So I don't know how many more Brooklyn Tweed sweaters I'm going to realistically, especially because I've got a lot of other sweater yarn to work through first that's in my stash already. But anyway, so that's my work in progress. I'm knitting predominantly on this. It's all just stockinette in the round at the moment. Or it's going to be stockinette in the round for the rest of the sweater, really, other than the ribbing on the bottom. But I really like to get through this, and I've got some other things I want to cast on. I also have some socks that I really should be working on. Speaking of which, we do have a cal going on at the moment with, I have a year-long cal actually running with the podcast, and it's a year-long pattern socks cal, where you can knit any socks that have a pattern to them, like cables or lace or textured pattern. It doesn't count self-striping, and it doesn't count just plain vanilla socks, but anything that has texture and pattern, ribbing, say cables, lace, all that kind of stuff, all counts, and it's all year long. You can enter as many times as you want. Any socks that you cast on after January 1st, 2018 and finish before December 31st, 2018 are eligible, and every 2 months, at the end of every 2 months, I'm drawing for another prize, and I'm drawing from the same finished object thread every time. So even if you entered a pair of socks in, let's say in February, you still have number of chances to win throughout the year. Or if you, enter this month, you get lots of chances for the next draw will be the beginning of April. The end of April, beginning of May. So about 10 days-ish from now is when I'll do the next draw. And so any socks that are in that thread at that time, other than the one that won our first draw at the end of February, everything else will be eligible. And the rules are all there. You can check it out. This is what I'm giving away in the next draw. So if you've got a pair of pattern socks and you haven't entered them in, do so. This is a beautiful yarn. This is yarn from, you can see, Bluebird Yarns. She's a Canadian dyer out of Ontario, I believe. The color is the Long Winter, which is a Little House on the Prairie reference. Very applicable for this time of year for a lot of us in North America, because it has indeed been a long winter. I know that we kept getting snow until, I think the last snowstorm we had was about a week and a half ago. And we've had a lot of snow for this winter. It's finally all like warming up and sunny and melting away, thank God. Although we have lots of flooding in some of the farmland around here, overland flooding, because of how much snow there was and how quickly it's all melting now. But I know lots of other places in North America have also had a long winter, so, and places in Europe as well. So very appropriate yarn name. And it's an 80/20 superwash merino nylon. I've thrown in, she threw in a little mini skein, which I've included it for Heels and Toes or something like that, because I thought it went nicely together. I think this is super pretty color. You can see all the lovely little speckles in there. So that's the prize that I will be giving away at the end of April. And yeah, so if you've got socks, as I said, join in. And I actually picked up another couple of prizes. Yesterday was an event here in Calgary called the Fiber Shindig, which is a biannual yarn and fiber and related crafts event. It's a one-day event marketplace that they have in the fall, once in the fall and once in the spring every year. I think this is the third year, maybe the fourth, but I can't remember whether it's third or fourth, but I've been going for a number of years and I really enjoy it. It's all fairly local to me. It's all dyers from the Alberta, Calgary and around Calgary area. And so there's lots of lovely yarns, some very popular yarn brands that are there. Yarn Inc. was there this year. She hasn't been there in a couple of years. And there's yarn and fiber and project bags and pottery and jewelry and all that kind of stuff that you would expect. And I went yesterday with my mother, which was really fun. My mother knows how to knit. She, in fact, she's been knitting most of her life. She was taught by her grandfather, I think. And she taught me how to knit. She knit periodically. She wasn't an all-the-time knitter when I was growing up, but she knit sweaters. She knit a sweater for my brother. She knit a sweater for me when I was a teenager. And she knit really lovely things when the mood inspired her. I think the last time really that she knit anything was when my older nephew, who's now 14, when he was born, she knit him some lovely little sweaters and hats. She knit a beautiful colorwork sweater for him and stuff. She definitely, like I said, she taught me how to knit, and thinking about the things she knit was inspiration to me in my knitting journey. And then she hasn't knit anything for a long time, and she told me recently that part of it was she had thought periodically about picking up her knitting again, but she was feeling like looking at all the things I knit, and she thought everything I knit was so beautiful and accomplished, and she felt like she couldn't compete. And I said, well, Mom, it's in no way a competition. So that makes me feel bad if you don't want to knit because you think that I'm somehow a better knitter than you. It's so not about that. And I really encouraged her that she should do it if she wants to and not compare herself to me at all. So I had invited her to come with me just as a way for us to spend a little time together and hang out. And she said she'd love to. And we went together. We had a very nice time. And she picked out a skein of yarn, sock weight, because she's decided that she wants to do socks, which is something she never knit before. But she had gone through a bunch of older patterns she had and found a plain vanilla top-down sock pattern and some double-pointed needles that she still had in her she had a knitting basket with needles and stuff that she put away. So she dug that all out and she bought herself a beautiful skein of yarn. And so yesterday I think she got home and she wound the skein. I offered to wind it on my ball winder for her, but she said she was fine with winding it by hand, although she told me this morning that it was tangled a little bit and it gave her a little bit of grief. But anyway, she wound it, and today she was swatching, and which I kind of laughed. I said, I don't think I ever have swatched for socks, but it made sense for her to figure out what size of needle she should use and whether she was, I remember my first couple of pairs of socks, because I didn't swatch. You have to go through that phase where they might be way too big or way too small, and she was going to bypass that by doing it correctly. So she was playing around with it today. She called me a couple of times already asking some questions, and So I'm really excited by that. I think it'd be great if she picks up her knitting again and does a little more knitting, and I can share that with her, and we can go to a few fiber-related things together. And you know, I always enjoy being able to share my knitting with people. And that led me to thinking a lot about knitting community and what that means and how it's different for different people. I know lots of podcasters say that they got into podcasting to connect to the community, and I think that's a true thing. It's like it's one of the ways that you can build community is online, and I think that that's fantastic. There are so many, you know, I have some really lovely knitting community online. I have all of you people who watch, and I have friends on Instagram and Ravelry, and people I've met through online knitting community and through podcasts and stuff, and that's been really lovely for me. And what I don't really have here is a very sort of, you know, traditional knitting community of other knitters a lot like myself. I know some people, and I'm very envious of this, of people who have good, you know, good knitting groups that they can go to. And I know there are knitting groups here. It's not that they aren't here. It's that I've never really connected to any of them. And part of it is my work schedule and the fact that sometimes I'm working days, sometimes nights. I'm not always available certain times and stuff. And so I've always found it a challenge to connect to that kind of community. But when I was thinking about it, I realized there's another kind of community I've sort of created for myself through friends and family a little bit, like with my mother, through encouraging people to knit and teaching people to knit. And I've taught a number of friends to knit. You know, when people ask me through work, you know, I very often knit. As I've talked about many times before, I'm a stage manager and I work in professional theater. I've worked in professional theater all my life, and I've worked in the city of Calgary in professional theater all my life, so I know most of the rest of the theater community here. And I very often, when I'm working on shows, will work on knitting at different points, and lots and lots of people have seen me knit. And every once in a while, somebody will say to me, hey, can you teach me how to do that? Or they'll say, I kind of know how to knit, and I've done it a few times, but I want to knit this. Can you help me? Or lots of questions like that. So I've worked with different friends. One of the best examples I have that I was very sort of proud of was my friend Cam, he's the sound technician at one of the theaters I work with a lot, and so he operates the sound, and I work with him in the booth when I'm calling shows, and I worked with him on and off for 7 or 8 years, and a couple of years, 2 or maybe 3 years ago now, I think, one day out of the blue, he said to me, I want to knit socks. I want to know how to knit socks. Can you show me how to do that? And he'd never knit before at all, but I said, yeah, I think so. So I had him set up. I brought him in some yarn and some double-pointed knitting needles, and I showed him some basics, and I taught him how to find resources on YouTube, and let him go. And he sort of cast on and started away, and he would come in periodically every couple of days at work. He would ask me a question and show me how it was going, and his first pair of socks had a few mistakes in them and some tension issues and all those things that new knitters have, but they were pretty good for somebody who had never knit at all before. And right away he finished them and he cast on a second pair, and they were quite good. And then he started figuring out other things, and he started knitting hats, and he just kind of took to it like a duck to water. I couldn't believe how quickly he learned and how good he became so quickly. And he was very funny. He went to a local yarn store at one point to pick up some other needles and some other yarn when he was starting to knit hats. And he told me that he went to the local yarn store, and then he got embarrassed, and so he told them that he was buying things for his girlfriend, which he totally wasn't. He was buying for himself, but he thought that they might think it was funny because he was a guy. And I said, oh, Cam, here's a thing you need to know. Never be embarrassed in a yarn store or around knitters to be a guy who knits. Women love to see men knitting. They're quite excited by it because, in my experience anyway, it's not just a woman's craft, although it's been kind of positioned and labeled as that. And anyway, it's really exciting. Cam has continued to knit for the last few years on and off. He, again, doesn't do it all the time, but he does it a fair amount at work. I asked him recently, I hadn't seen him knit in a while, and we weren't working on a show at the time, but I ran into him and I said, are you still knitting? He said, are you kidding me? I knit so I don't kill people. Of course I'm still knitting. So, and he's actually, this month is his last month at that job at that theater company, and he's moving to Victoria, to the West Coast. And so as a goodbye present, I bought him a copy of Ribbed, which is a American knit magazine for men, if you haven't heard of it. And he was really excited by that. And there were a couple of really nice men's sweater patterns in that. And he was like, I've been wanting to knit a sweater. So I expect that his knitting career will continue. And so I was realizing I've kind of been creating my own community a little bit at a time by teaching the people that I am around a lot to knit, as opposed to having to go out and find the knitting group and stuff, which, as I said, is hard for my schedule and my time. And I had on my last show, I had a funny day where I had most of the people I was working with in one way or another all wanting it was a weekend day, we were working on a Saturday, and they all kind of brought in the director of the play I was working with. She's been a knitter for a long time. She actually was knitting before I was, but she's still not as experienced. She's not as adventurous and has not tried as many things, and hasn't ever figured out kind of the YouTube and online resources that are there. So she wanted to figure out how to knit socks on Magic Loop, and so she said, if I bring in a project, can you show me how Magic Loop works and how to do that? So she was doing that. One of the actress who was in the show I was in is also somebody I taught to knit about 4 or 5 years ago, and she was knitting her very first sweater, and she had stuff she wanted to ask me and get me to show her. So she brought that in. And then my assistant stage manager on the show wanted to learn to knit as well. She's one of those people, she had learned real basics way back when she was a teenager or a kid or whatever, but she'd never really taken to it. But she saw me knitting, and this particular show we were doing, there wasn't a lot for her to do backstage. It was assistant stage manager is usually backstage in the wing of the theater, but very little work for her to do during the show. She's basically just sort of sitting there, which is her job, to just sort of sit there in case anything was to go wrong or whatever. And she thought that would be a good time to do something, and it's fairly dark backstage, so she wanted something that she could do, and also you want something that you are still paying attention to your job. So she thought, knitting something simply in the round would be the thing she could do, and she knew that that's what I did with my knitting at work. So she said, can you help me? She thought she would just sort of do the first thing she did was just sort of a tube for a while to knit in the round and just practice and stuff, and then she did a very simple stockinette hat with a brim, and then she had to do a couple of hats. But so they were all asking me this on the same day, so I felt like I had like Joanne's knitting school going on breaks and stuff in around us doing our jobs that day. So I did start to realize, as I said, that I have been slowly in the theater community building my own knit community that way, which is kind of fun and interesting. So anyway, that's a digression a bit, but it was just thoughts I had thinking about going to the fiber shindig with my mother. And I just wanted to show you what I got while I was there, because I started off saying that I got a couple of other prizes for our sock knit along for further down the further into the year. So I'll show you those first. I visited my friend Kim, who is Ginger Snap. That's her label on Ravelry and Instagram. Some places I think she's Ginger Snap that, but primarily she's Ginger Snap. This is her card, Kim Nelson. She's got an Etsy shop, which is etsy.com/shop/gingersnapthat. So her Etsy shop is Ginger Snap That. I will put this in the show notes and put it in the down bar as well. Because Kim very generously donated a prize for the podcast And I also bought some things from her. It's also where my mother bought the yarn that she's making her first pair of socks with. So we really kind of went to town at Kim's booth, and she's great. She does project bags. She dyes yarn, beautiful yarn. Her husband dyes sock blanks, and then she also does charms and progress keepers and stitch markers. So she's got a whole range of products, and I really like her stuff. So I bought this lovely set, the sock set from her shop. Now I can't quite read the name on it. It's Jam. I don't know if you can read that. Jam something. It's a sock set, but it is. It's a merino nylon, 80% merino, 20% nylon, and it's obviously it's 2 50-gram skeins of yarn. Really pretty, sort of plummy, maroony, purple red, and then this pink and white with few little speckles in it as well. Speckles of black. Oh yeah, there's more in there. As a mini for heels, toes, and cuffs. I think it's a 20-gram mini. So I'm going to be giving this away as a prize for our knit along at some point later in the year. Really love that. And Kim donated a sock size bag, one of her bags, and she actually just said to me, pick one out, whatever one you want. And this is the one I picked out. I love this. I thought it was fun. It's a Canadiana bag. I'll probably give this away as the prize in the sock knit along somewhere around July. Somewhere around the 1st of July is Canada Day for those of you who are not Canadians who watch. And I think this will be a perfect prize for the prize draw. That's I think maybe 1st of July, 1st of May. Yeah, I'm going to give this away for the prize. That's at the beginning of July. It's a lovely little, I have a couple of Kim's bags. They're a nice generous size. It's a sock bag, so it's primarily a single sock, but you could actually fit 2 skeins of yarn in there, so it would be fine for a small colorwork project or a shawl project until your shawl got too big. But and it's yeah, it's beautiful, it's sturdy, and I just love this fabric with all of these Canadiana sports beavers, and it's got a little project keeper on there that's a Canadian maple leaf. So yeah, I really want to thank Kim for her fantastic generosity. You should totally go and check out her shop. As I said, it's on Etsy, Ginger Snap That. And yeah, she's got lots of beautiful stuff. She may be a little depleted right now because she was at the Fiber Shindig yesterday with a ton of stuff. But she's always posting things in her shop. And I got something for myself. As I said, my mother got a skein of yarn there for socks, and I picked up this, which is another sock set. It's called Bloody Zombie Sock Set. I just couldn't resist. I love it. This neon green, wildly variegated with red, darker greens, reds, and browns. 2 50-gram skeins, and then a blood red mini. She's got a pattern for zombie socks with this, which is really fun. The toe sort of is dripping in blood. I might do that, or I might do sort of a variation. It is a toe-up sock, which is not my absolute favorite. I prefer to do top-down, and I don't know that the chart for the dripping blood would work on the as easily on the toe for top-down. But I could also do bloody cuffs. I could do this red for the cuff and then make that sort of drip down. Anyway, it's a super fun idea, and I just love this. I just think this is so much fun and lively. And you can get away with that absolutely crazy yarn in socks, right? Because I can wear them and hardly anybody will know that they're in my socks except me. They will give me great joy. So I picked up that for myself, and then I picked up 2 other little things for my, well, I picked up a sock blank from Flock Fiber, which are another local dyer to me. They are also on Flock Fiber Studio. She's also on Etsy, I do believe, and you should check her out. I will put a link to her shop, their shop. Actually, it's 2. I should say her, it's their. Yeah, they're at www.flockfiberstudio.com, and I love their yarns. I've knit with their yarns before, and they just started doing sock blanks a few months, maybe maybe in the fall. And I just thought this was super pretty, and I couldn't resist picking it up. And I actually might cast this on pretty much right away. I do need a new pair of vanilla socks, and I just love it. The color, this color is, it's their Take a Hike sock blank, which is an 80/20 as well, and it's Princess Tiger Cub. Sorry, not pretty. So I picked up that for myself, and then the last thing I picked up was some stitch markers. I don't know if I'm going to get these out of here, but some really pretty little, there's ring stitch markers, which I love. It's my favorite kind of stitch markers, just the simple little rings. And this is from Flutterby's. Here's her card. She had beautiful stuff. She had all kinds of project keepers and stitch markers, and including, she had some incredible, she had like some rose gold stitch markers, $65 for a set, because they're actual rose gold from, she say Israeli gold, I think she said. They were just beautiful, but a little out of my price range. I was a little, these were $4. I was a little worried about spending that much money on stitch markers, and sure as heck I'd lose them immediately. So, but anyway, so that was the last other item that I purchased. So again, you know, thanks so much to Kim for her generosity with donating that bag, and I'm looking forward to gifting both the sock set and the sock bag at some point for our knit along. So if you haven't already, and if you're interested in, if you've got some pattern socks you're knitting, or if you're interested, if you've never tried pattern socks, I highly encourage you to give it a go. There are lots of simple ones to start with if you've never done it before, or if you've done them before, you know, amp it up a little bit and give yourself a challenge and try something. You know, I should be honest and give it the caveat here. I was going to say I do enjoy both a simple pattern sock and a really complex pattern sock, but I was realizing I should be honest with you and say I haven't worked on pattern socks hardly at all. I think I've only completed one pair of pattern socks, or one pair of socks period, since January, which is very unusual for me. I have had very little sock mojo, but it's because all my time and attention is going to my sweaters right now. So, but I am a bad sock knitter when I'm running my own cow, but I will catch up. I do have a couple of pairs of socks, pattern socks, half knit, and I just haven't worked on them in a while, but I will catch up. I promise I will jump in. And in the meantime, there's all kinds of great inspiration in the finished object thread on Ravelry there, which is in the Creative Mojo Ravelry group. And there are about 50 pairs, I think, posted in there now, somewhere in that vicinity. And they're all I know my queue has grown a little bit looking at some really lovely patterns. So anyway, do come along and join us. As I said, it's going all year, and happy to have anybody jump in. That, I do believe, is everything I have to talk to you about today. I have enjoyed spending a little time with you. I hope that you have felt the same. And until I talk to you again, happy knitting.